Hello, sveiki, and hola. Welcome to this episode of the Sprachenzentrum's Minding Your Language series. Have you ever listened to a song or a conversation and realized that there were parts you couldn't understand? This can be frustrating if you have no trouble with listening comprehension in your English classes. In this mini-series, we'll be looking at what makes listening in a foreign language so difficult and what we can do to practice and improve it. We meet Saira, who's got an appointment with John at the writing centre. The door is open, but she can hear John still on the phone to someone.
Hey, that's great. How'd you do it?
Saira's confused. She thought she was quite good at understanding spoken English, but she didn't understand anything apart from great. In John's workshop, she was able to understand him perfectly. Let's hear what John sounds like when he teaches.
Please tell everyone. How did you do it?
Why does he sound so different in those two examples? Spoken language is used in many different situations. When new words or ideas are introduced and are therefore pronounced with extra care. In front of an audience in a formal context, when of course we want to make it easy for the audience to follow. In professional, informal meetings, in friendly conversations in our free time, and while engaging in some other activity like playing, where we may move around or shout or whisper. In all those situations, the same word or sentence will sound completely different. Richard Cauldwell explains these differences with the help of metaphors. He uses the greenhouse to describe that every word is said separately and clearly, the garden where words flow into each other a little, and the jungle where you don't know where one word ends and another begins. We'll take the sentence Saira heard in John's workshop to understand these metaphors better. In a grammar lesson teaching questions, John might say it like this.
How did you do it?
In the workshop, Saira heard,
How did you do it?
And when he was on the phone, John said,
How'd you do it?
So what is the difference? The difference lies in the time John allows himself to say this sentence. In the jungle version, he is much faster than in the greenhouse version. To understand what is going on, we need to look at syllables. A syllable is the unit of sound that contains one vowel. Nice, for example, has 1, easy has 2, and difficult has 3. So what is the connection between syllables and time? If we have a lot of time, we can stress more syllables, and those syllables can be heard relatively clearly. The more time pressure we apply, the less time we have to say something clearly. We have fewer stressed syllables. And because of that time pressure, the words between our stressed syllables turn to mush. What is mush? In the original sense, it refers to something we've cooked that is no longer solid, or doesn't allow us to see those individual peas, for example. For listening comprehension, it means that all the sounds between our stressed syllables are heard as one unit. We can't distinguish individual words anymore. This means that in the jungle version, the how did you has to be crushed to fit into one element. So we have learned that in units of speech, those unstressed elements are crushed and we hear a mush of sounds. What is always the same in writing can be said in different ways. It comes out in different sound shapes. Now, what happens to those individual sounds in natural speech? Let's illustrate a few of those effects. It is possible that sounds can't be heard any longer because they are dropped. Linguists call this elision. In a grammar lesson about pronouns, we would say,
That is where she met him.
But in natural speech we hear,
It was in that grammar lesson that she met him.
Where the H is dropped. Another example would be,
That's between you and me.
Here the D is dropped so that we don't hear it at all. This phrase also contains another phenomenon, a weak form. As we don't have enough time for the connecting and, the vowel must be reduced and changes into a shorter version with a different quality. When words are said in natural speech, They may also be blended into each other, which means that what is two different words in writing may sound like one word when spoken. The sounds at the border between those words change. Linguists call this assimilation.
You can come. I have a spare ticket. I can't. I have to go back to the office.
What we still hear as a V for Syra now sounds like an F in Miguel's sentence.
Don't worry. I can go with someone else.
These are two more examples of sounds that are blended. The N of can is blended with the G in go and sounds like what we have in sing. And the TH in with blends into the S of someone so that we basically hear just one sound. Those are just 3 examples of what happens in speech. There are many more phenomena. But that's a topic for another video or other useful websites. Check out our links below. Now, why is it that native speakers or advanced learners manage to understand so much more than learners at intermediate or pre-intermediate levels? The starting point is the same for everyone. We hear a combination of sounds. Then we use our knowledge of the language and of the world to make sense of what we hear. When we hear those final examples, we all hear the same mush.
Want a cup of coffee? Thanks. I almost had one earlier. Maybe I should have.
The difference lies in the next step. Beginners with their limited experience and knowledge are only able to identify the most common phrases, like the first one. Advanced learners, on the other hand, are able to draw on a much wider experience. And that gives them the chance to identify unfamiliar sound shapes like the second one. So let's recap. In natural speech, words are not pronounced as clearly as in a classroom, which leads to a lot of possible sound shapes. Clarity of speech is influenced by how quickly something is being said. The less time we have, the fewer syllables can be stressed, and unstressed syllables are reduced or crushed. Learners who are not familiar with those sound shapes have difficulties recognizing them, and that is exactly what makes listening so difficult. If you want to know how to improve your listening skills, continue with the second video in this mini-series, or check out other videos we've prepared for you. Até logo, vi suggero, and goodbye. See you next time.